Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're at. My name is Ben Thomas, president of UST Training, usttraining.com, and we are very pleased today to present kind of a first of a kind panelist talk, how to keep your UST inspector happy. I've been doing these technical webinars throughout 2023 as a way to kind of keep our UST community strong in times of COVID and hard travel times. And so we've got a very esteemed group of speakers today talking about perspectives on UST compliance inspections. We all want to have successful inspections, whether you're a service technician, inspector, or an operator. And so I decided to kind of pull together some of my friends here and my business associates who I think have the same vision as I do, and that's we want to have non-leaky tanks and successful inspections and good compliance and all that. So today I'll be going around the room and introducing some folks and getting different perspectives. For those who don't know me, Ben Thomas, UST Training, I've been doing underground storage tank compliance stuff since 1986 when I first was a tank yank inspector for the state of Vermont. So I actually predate the federal regs. I was a cleanup project manager up in Alaska for a number of years, and I got into the prevention side of things. And for those of you who've been around a long time, remember the 1998 deadline. I helped the state of Alaska cross that finish line with upgrading all the tanks in Alaska. Since 2002, I've had my own consulting training business. It's kind of blossomed into usttraining.com, and we provide online operator training, ABC operator training nationwide. So very excited to be here today. I'm going to start off with Nicole. Have you introduced yourself briefly, Nicole?
Nicole Aquino. Right now, I just started working with EPA Region 3. My disclaimer is that right now I am not officially representing the EPA. These are my own personal recommendations or opinions. Please check with your state UST section for any facility specific questions and state guidance.
Great. And before that, though, you're not new to tanks. You were a UST inspector.
No. Yes, previously with the state of Hawaii underground storage tank section, I was a tank inspector for 5 years.
Super cool. Great. And Don Reeves from Oregon.
Yeah, my name is Don Reeves. I work for Mascot Equipment. I've been in the industry since 1988. Started testing in 1994 and have never looked back. And it's been done a lot of inspections, done a lot of testing.
Great. The Hotel California, right, Don?
Yeah. You can't leave.
Can't leave. Javed from Beaumont, Texas.
Hi everyone. My name is Javed Surani. I'm from Beaumont. It's Beaumont, Texas is near Houston for folks that may not know where Beaumont is. So a little bit about me, my previous experiences with tanks. It's actually, I can divide my underground storage tank life into 3 parts. First part is, as a child, my parents used to own and operate gas stations. So I was around underground storage tanks, helping my parents stick the tanks and such. And then after college, I went ahead and worked for the state as an inspector. So I did for state of Texas with the TCEQ. I was a state inspector there for about 4 years. And then shortly after that, I started my own consulting firm. And so I help, my main responsibilities is to help small business owners who own gas stations, help them understand regulations. A few years ago, I partnered with UST Training with Ben Thomas, and we created the nationwide Hindi Class C operator course. And then in Texas, we started the first ever Hindi Class AB operator training course.
Super cool. And Javed's dad is the voice talent for the training course, which I think is pretty cool. Thanks again to your dad, Javed. And John.
Hey, good morning, John Tuttle. I'm with Sticker Stores. We're a convenience store chain. We operate in Colorado, Idaho, and Wyoming. I've been involved with tanks since about 2006 in the transportation side, delivery side, as well as now compliance and training and all that goes along with that. got hooked up with Ben for AB and some C operator training online. It's been a great relationship.
That's great. And Ed Kabinski with OWL.
Ed Kabinski, OWL Services, Legacy Cromco. Been in the celebrating my 30th year in the industry this month. But a couple people on the call got me by a few years. Started out as a technician doing compliance testing, did that for about 8 years, and 2001 since I've been in the office. And my responsibility is understanding rules and regulations in all the states where we operate, and also training, certification, and licensing for the company as well as all the individuals.
That's great. And Ed and I have done a couple of live trainings before. We've had a lot of fun doing that. So great to have you on board, Ed. And Brett from Montana.
Brett Smith with the Montana UST program. I've been in the tank business since December '98. I came along just as the deadline came along. Put in about 8 years with the state of Montana as an inspector, and then went out on my own for about 14 years.
That's
and
right. Yeah.
got the other side of inspections out there in the field, fixing things, solving problems. And then just a couple of years ago, came back into the state program, and now I'm doing inspections and inspector and installer training, a lot of training.
Right on. And then Chris, our trusty helper here, keeping us all going in the right direction today.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. I work with UST Training, mainly supporting customers to have the best experience they can have. And yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the questions in the Q&A box to make sure that we get all those answered for everybody today.
That's great, Chris. I've got a couple of kind of prepared questions, but if you can keep an eye on questions that are coming up. And so please use the Q&A feature to type in a question that you have for the panelists. And if we'll try to kind of synchronize the time to where we can answer the question relative to what we're talking about, but otherwise we'll circle back at the end. So, and again, kind of like to riff on what Nicole was saying, these really are perspectives. I think those who know me know that I like to gather a lot of different perspectives. In remembering of Carolyn Hoskinson, the former EPA director of EPA's Office of Underground Storage Tanks, she really liked to bring everybody to the table. You know, this is a project of keeping tanks safe that we all are a part of, whether you're a service provider, an operator, or an inspector. And so I like to kind of have a well-balanced a collection of perspectives here. What do field technicians see? What do operators a lot of sites see? What do tank inspectors who've been out in the field a whole bunch see that's out there? And so I decided to put, I think this idea got born out of a Friday Zoom call that we had a little bit ago. And I'm excited to have so many people show up and see what we have to say. I think I want to start off really kind of at the ground level here. And this maybe be most particular to Don and Ed. You know, an inspector comes to a site and there's maybe some major violations. I'm not like doing leak detection at all, or maybe there's like a minor violation, like, I don't know, water in the spill bucket or something like that. But I would love to hear from the field perspective, what are some common violations that could be very easily remedied before the inspector even shows up? In other words, I mean, what are some kind of like garden variety activities operators are like not doing, but could be doing easily to avoid a problem in the field? Does that make sense? So what are some easy, like get out of jail free card kind of things that operators or maybe inspectors could hear as well? Don or Ed for starters.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the liquid in the sumps, liquid in the spill buckets, liquid in the under dispenser containment sumps. You know, that's a big one. You know, we're inside those things every day, and especially with the spill buckets, it's rare that we see them clean and dry. Okay. So, you know, and that's a very easy one for inspectors to write you up on. So, you know, when you're getting a delivery, before or after the delivery, check the spill bucket, make sure it's clean and dry. You know, after a rainstorm, give it a quick check. You know, minimum on a monthly basis, that's required by the law now, but, you know, as a best practice, at least before and after deliveries.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of spill buckets that didn't really would have not needed replacing if they'd have just kept them clean, because they're just full. That and having a bunch of rags and old filters and, you know, debris down in the bottom under a dispenser. That's their first look is what kind of sets the tone for the whole thing. They walk in and they see water everywhere, and, you know, spill buckets full of water, debris in the sumps. That's kind of, you know, okay, this guy's not taking care of his site, so I better look a little harder.
Okay, so
Just to
clean
make
and dry
sure.
every day, and first impressions really matter. Is that a fair?
Yes.
And
Yes.
someone did ask a question. Okay, so what's the best method or device to remove liquid from a spill bucket? What do you recommend for that? Just jump right into the practicality.
Well, if it's a small amount, you know, you can just absorb it up with something, you know, or there's little hand pumps. You can buy them at Costco, or not Costco, Home Depot. That's what I use for spill buckets and stuff. Just a hand. In fact,
Don's in his
And-
truck right now.
I just picked one up the other day.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's-
Do not
it's-
use,
it's-
do not use, you know, shop vacs or anything like that. That's
No.
dangerous. So never use you know, an electric, shop vac, you know, when cleaning out your spill buckets. Use something mechanical like the hand pump that Don showed, for sure.
Now, hang on, I got one more thing. Go ahead and carry on.
Okay.
If there's fuel in the spill buckets that needs to be cleaned up, you know, if the spill bucket has a drain valve and you know it's only fuel, you could drain it back into the tank. Otherwise, I would suggest using oil absorbent pads, you know, getting them, you know, picking it up with them and then properly disposing them in a waste drum on site.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is
so-
another thing that one of my guys up in Seattle found at Home Depot,
Oh yeah.
and it's 2D batteries up here, and it's for hazard. I mean, it's for fuel.
Oh wow.
It pumps fuel just fine. And they make a 3-foot version of it too. It's quite a handy little unit, and it's good if you have water under or gas under dispenser or something like that. That will get it out, but it doesn't go, you know, you can only get down to the last half inch or so.
Okay, so yeah, so get a little battery powered pump for the floating liquid, and then a little absorbent pad. Okay, so clean and dry every day. I mean, I've said in the past, you know, you don't want like that frayed string on your cuff, because then you kind of start pulling at it. So you do want to have a site that's like cleaned up and ready for you, right? I mean, so anything you do to kind of present well at first inspection, just kind of philosophically speaking, is probably a good idea. Well, Javed, you're out in the field a lot too. What do you think? So yeah, stuff that you go, this could have been so easily taken care of if they'd only, you know, blank. What else would we recommend to our operators?
So I would highly recommend getting the adequate training done. Really,
Okay.
the reason I say this is because I'll share a story with you. I was out on a site doing an inspection as a state representative. And while I was there, I was speaking to the Class C operator, or who I thought was the Class C operator. And they were showing me all these records of stage 2 inspections. And, you know, just a side note, stage 2 in Texas was gone in 2012. And so this site representative in 2017 was showing me all these records of all the inspections they were doing since, you know, years. And the fact is the equipment was not even there. So I would highly recommend making sure that the operators are adequately trained and they know what they're inspecting, right? And so I think that's kind of important, having the right training done.
Correct. And then timing it such that when the inspector shows up, that person is there, right? And because that can be a snag if the AB operator is on vacation, or like I said, the Class C operator is going down a completely different path. It's not even what you're looking at. Interesting.
Right.
Okay. John, I was going to ask you. I mean, so what sort of things I mean, because you've got a whole bunch of sites and locations. What sort of, are there things that you do in advance? Let's say the inspector is coming. Are there things you do in advance that help you have a successful inspection? You're muted.
Sorry, just trying to cut down on the background noise here.
Yeah.
So what we do is have our maintenance team run through basically another monthly check, another walkthrough, and
Okay.
specifically look at all areas. So all the buckets, all the sumps, all the required stickers on the dispensers, and just run through everything, including training documentation at the store and everything, and just try to look at everything that we expect an inspector to look at and make sure we're up to snuff.
So you kind of do like a bonus 30-day walkthrough inspection, kind of an extra one that month, as kind of a structure for things to look out for. That I never
Right.
thought about that. And
Right, and then we're fortunate we have our own team, so we can get them hands-on. So we may be there a few days after our vendor does a walkthrough, or several days, but it's an advantage to have somebody go out and do it. Some of our remote stores, our managers are really up to speed, and they can get into a lot of the areas. Some of our sites still have the old steel giant lids, and they have to wait for maintenance to get there. But basically, just take a good look at everything early, make
Okay.
sure everything's up to snuff.
The
I
day
guess,
before is always a good idea.
yeah. And I guess if you have the capacity to have your own internal maintenance team, I mean, if you're a company that has the resource to have that sounds like kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, to have your own in-house people, and they're the ones who, when the inspector comes, they open up the lids and they cordon everything off, and they make for a successful. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Leathers Oil out of Portland, they have their own team of guys that they're in every sump monthly cleaning, and they take impeccable care of their
Okay.
sites.
I know some of the older sumps are not really designed to get in that often. Have they been able to overcome? 'Cause I mean, ideally you don't want to get in there any more than you have to, although a monthly inspection is not a bad idea, as long as you aren't like stripping bolts and dropping stuff in there. And is that working for them? Can they get in there that often without kind of compromising the integrity of
yeah.
the sump? Okay.
Yeah, they put in CNI hinge lids,
Okay.
and they keep them maintained, so their guys aren't in any danger, because when I was up in Alaska last, we had several Safeways that had they've been replaced now, but the hinges were completely gone. Those were not a Alaska compatible design.
Okay. Okay. So any way to facilitate the safe access of all these openings by having, whatever fiber lids, or whether you got your magnetic lid lifters or your correct hinge. Okay. Yeah. So improving your hardware such that more routine inspection than the minimum requirement is not hurtful to the hardware. That's cool.
No,
Right.
but a lot of, that's also very expensive to upgrade your sump lids and stuff like that. So
Okay.
it doesn't happen unless there's a real necessity.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, we too have vendors also that help us out with our monthly walkthroughs, and then any repairs they spot. We've been trying to take care of things early instead of wait till it has to be fixed, so we can take our time and kind of plan for, budget for some of the bigger things that are going to come up. But our vendors are a big help of spotting those issues where lids don't fit right, or there's something, and then we can plan and go forward and not try to scramble 30 days before an inspection.
And curious, John, do you have your own Stinker Stores monthly walkthrough that's like a modification of the state form, or do you use a state form, or do you use PEI RP 900, or what's your device for that?
Mixture.
Okay.
So in Colorado, we use their form. Wyoming, we use their form, plus the vendor has a real detailed form. And then in Idaho, our vendor has a real detailed form. that we use there.
Okay. And then I would like to pull in Nicole and Brett as UST inspectors. What are some things that you guys see, or anything different than what we've talked about so far, where you go to a site and you go, come on, guys, you could have done, this and saved us all a lot of trouble. Are there things that were maybe not so much in the lids, maybe the record keeping part of things, or what are some other things that operators could easily do prior to you arriving there that they don't always do?
One of the easiest things is we've got on our website a pre-inspection checklist. If they download that, go through that, and if they go through that entire checklist and don't have anything that jumps out at them as being wrong, they're going to be pretty golden during an inspection.
Okay. Nicole,
That's a
anything?
good one. I would say reviewing the pre-inspection notice, because it usually has a list of records. So if an inspector calls for an announced inspection, they'll usually give you a list of records. And if you just go read through it and bring out your binder and make sure everything's in it, that'd be great.
I know we're getting some questions about announced versus unannounced inspections. I'm kind of a fan of announced inspections. Open it up to the group here. Pros or cons of announced or unannounced inspections. Any opinions about that?
We always prefer the announced inspections. It does give the owners and the operators time to get everything together, to get clean. Also, if they run into something that they know will be noticed, they can get in a service technician to fix it before we ever show up. Or actually, some of them also have service technicians that show up on site with us during the inspection so that they can help out, and they kind of get it from the horse's mouth. If we find a meter that's leaking, they can have that fixed before I get to the end of the driveway.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot less stressful, of course, having an announced inspection versus unannounced. You've got the chance to schedule people to be on site, so your store is covered. Everything's going on, and then, like Brett mentioned, we have our vendors accompany so that if they find something, they can jump right on it, or at least it gets dispatched very quickly versus going through the chain. Our goal is to just get it squared away if we find something quickly.
I am seeing some requests in the Q&A to get a copy of that checklist. And so if any of you guys have pre-inspection checklists, especially Brett, what you were talking about, can you please give me a copy and I can shoot that out to everyone on the call? It sounds like there's some interest in the recipe, as it were, for getting ready for an inspection.
I will send it on over.
Great. Yeah, I'm personally a fan of announced inspections. It does give people a little bit of time. There's only so much stuff you can kind of fake between when you get the letter and when the inspector shows up. I think a seasoned inspector could go there and say, yeah, this has kind of been like this for a while versus here's something freshened up. But I like to think an announced inspection does give operators a chance to kind of freshen stuff up so that it is ready for inspections. You can't invent, missed leak detection records or, not doing your testing on time. But I think it is a courtesy that I think maybe not in every single case, but in many cases is fair.
Yeah, not to mention the safety aspect of doing the physical part of the inspection. Having a service provider there to properly, barricade the work area, to open up the sumps, take a good look. There's a lot of safety issues with, the physical part of the inspection that, maybe a state inspector doesn't have, the proper amount of cones and cone bars and stuff like that to, keep pedestrian and vehicle traffic away from these, big holes. As a service provider, we see things happen periodically with, opening up those big lids and traffic coming in and out during, inspections and testing. So, that's safety is a big part of the physical part of the inspection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having almost been hit myself a lot of times, I can totally appreciate that.
Oregon
Ben,
and
I want to jump in.
Washington they won't lift the lid, open a lid or anything. They expect, both Washington and Oregon expect you to have someone there to take care of that.
Ben, I wanted to quickly jump in and talk a little bit about the unannounced inspections. So as a consultant who manages facilities, I prefer to know when the inspection is about to happen, so that way we can make sure everything is cleaned up and make sure all the paperwork is on site for review. But on the other side of it, I was kind of thinking, what pros could there be for an unannounced inspection? And while thinking that, I was thinking, there is a surprise element to it as well. When you get a snapshot of what is happening at the site when you do an unannounced visit, which is from a state's perspective is important. You need to know, what exactly is going on, before. So that way, this type of inspection also does a preventive deterrence. So this kind of makes the operator be always ready, always ready to expect an inspection. So they're always doing their 30 days. They're always making sure that they get their testing done on time. So kind of there's that thread which kind of helps the operator be vigilant.
I wrote an article years ago about behavior modification in tank operators. It was an article called it was a kind of a play on a dog training book called "Don't Shoot the Dog," and that's actually a behavioral modification technique called putting the operator on notice. They're like, maybe the inspector is going to come around tomorrow. So yeah, there is something to be said for that too. Yeah, that's a good perspective. I appreciate that. What are, for my inspectors, Nicole and formerly Javed and Brett, what are some inspection outreach tools you've used that you've found to be successful? I mean, you got the checklist, maybe you got the pre-notification. Are there any other things that maybe inspectors could hear that help you have a successful inspection? Maybe either it's like how you present yourself or the order of business, or are there some kind of tools in your toolbox you think make your inspections go well, if that makes sense?
I actually have one pretty good tool. I encourage some of my smaller operators to get a Gmail account. They're free, like greatgas@gmail.com, and then store all of their documentation in that Gmail account. They can forward it to whomever they need to at any time from pretty much anywhere.
Okay, so helping them kind of be business organized with compliance stuff, and by having a okay, yeah, that's cool. Nicole or Javed, any success stories you've had, or any little kind of secret tips that you have that you find make, I mean, it doesn't necessarily make the violations go away, but it maybe makes for a less painful experience, if you know what I mean?
Just being organized. I recommend using any state templates if your state has them, like for the 30-day walkthrough. Most states I think have them.
Yep.
Well, at least the ones in Region 3 and Hawaii definitely worked really hard on that one.
Okay, yeah, so really encouraging them to use the standardized forms for documentation of everything. Okay.
It really does make reviewing it faster because the inspector's already familiar with it and doesn't have to read every sentence on the page to make sure it matches the regulation.
Sure. I know for the state of Oregon, for years ago, I teamed up with the Oregon Fuels Association and created them an annual compliance 3-ring binder. And every year we give them a new template. They print it off, 3-hole punch it. Granted, there's online vault pipe storage of all that sort of stuff, but if you're a small mom and pop operator, you need a simple system. And I know in Oregon, the state inspectors like it because they go, show me the OFA binder, and there it is. And then at least all the infrastructure is in place. Whether it's filled out is another question, but yeah, okay, that kind of standardization.
Something that the state of Texas does, which I encourage, I don't know if it happens in other states, prior to an inspection, I believe the state has a list of stores that are going to get inspected, for example, in the next 6 months. And so what they do is an arm of the state the small business assistants of the TCEQ, they will actually send a letter to the facility, maybe a year in advance, and letting
wow.
them know, we have a webinar, and it's only targeted to the ones that are going to be getting an inspection that year. And so they target those facilities, let them know there's a webinar or a in-person training. And it doesn't say that you are going to get inspected. It just says there's a webinar in your area. We encourage you to attend. And so, but I know that it's targeted to the ones that are going to be inspected in the year. And so, that kind of tool really, helps that operator, if they're not prepared right now, at least from this point onwards, they're going to start gathering their documents, making sure their testing is done and such.
Wow. And I know every Sunday I get an email from the TCEQ about the amount of fines they've issued the previous week. And sometimes it's like in the millions of dollars. I mean, maybe if you got all the tank operators on that mailing list, that might be another deterrent. Texas collects some pretty heavy fines. Wow. Okay. But I love that idea of the kind of the subtle notification and so you actually they queue up the number of sites they're going to go visit, and then they start. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Wow,
I really like that idea.
So as a contractor, when my facility, sorry to cut you off, Ed, my facility receives that letter, I know it's also, hey, okay, this year we're going to get something, so let's make sure that all of the testing is done. And so it gives me a heads up as well.
as long as because not everyone connects those two signals, though, right? Oh, I'm getting this email. Oh, I'm going to be inspected. Interesting. Ed, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like from Brett and Nicole's perspective, are you seeing more and more smaller owner operators moving to like an electronic data management system? I'm sure larger owners like John, and customers of ours, they use electronic data management systems, to handle all their test reports, monthly leak detection, registrations and all that. But are a lot of the smaller owners still using, paper and notebooks and stuff like that? Or are you seeing more of a transition to electronic data management storage for, all the paperwork required for the inspections?
Unfortunately, for the smaller owners, we haven't seen that kind of a tendency. We encourage it all the time, but we haven't been able to break the old paper habit. If you got the paper, just stick it in a drawer kind of thing.
Right.
We really encourage the heck out of people using binders and definitely electronic storage. But we just, we're pulling them a little bit hard to try to get up to that. And once they do get up there, it really helps them out.
A number of states are now starting to create their own web portals. And so you can actually log into the state database and see all your stuff there and pay your bills and stuff like that. So I would predict in the next 5 years, maybe a majority of states will develop their own in-house portals that will kind of store that anyways, whether that is just for, insurance fees, registration, or whether it's actual storage of compliance data, I think remains to be seen. But and I've done a couple of webinars this year about leveraging internet technology. And so I think smaller operators ought to be encouraged to explore all the different kind of vault type systems that are out there, because I think, organization is so much of it. I think you can go to a site and you can tell pretty quickly if someone is like chaotically organized or the bookkeeper and the accountant is like keeping track of every single little piece of paper here. So yeah, keeping one's eyes open for digital solutions, I think is something that's coming for everybody probably.
Yeah, we are seeing a number of states, New Hampshire, Illinois, requiring testers to submit documentation into their portals, and it's readily accessible to pretty much anybody. But yeah. we're Kansas required to upload reports into their system, which kind of makes it easier on the inspector's end to see if the testing's been done, at the proper intervals and it's getting done. So we're seeing it.
My only issue is the document needs to be available at the time of inspection. And if the facility is having internet issues or VPN issues and they can't bring it up, it's harder to do the inspection at that time. So you have to continue it in the office for a few weeks, going back and forth by email or phone. So
That's why we have announced inspections, right?
yeah, exactly. Make sure it's downloaded on your computer first.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mine, we
So always,
definitely had that.
okay, so always have a local copy is what it
Yeah.
sounds like. Is that, okay, yeah.
Or download it on your computer, and it can be in the cloud, but it can't only be in the cloud because sometimes you can't see it later.
Interesting.
And do you have a favorite software program or vendor that you use for that?
That's a setup question. Go for it, Ed.
Yeah, we have a data management system called the Vault that we offer, and a number of our clients use it to store, tank registrations, permits, leak detection records, test reports, and keep it all organized. So yeah, we have a favorite. It's ours. Thanks for the question.
It actually wasn't planned. I didn't know that you guys had that.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that there are a number of platforms out there these days that are a subscription service that you can use to store all this stuff. I'd love to see that pushed down to the folks that really need it the most, which are the smaller independent owners and operators for sure.
And honestly, for a small independent operator, something as simple as Google Drive is adequate enough, to keep all the records electronically somewhere where it's safe.
And going back to training too, Javed, if you know what you got in the ground, then you know what rules apply, then you don't have to, maintain this giant stuff because it's just applicable to your individual side. I know certainly one of the more maddening parts about UST compliance in general is figuring out what's in the ground, what's applicable, what's required, what's not, and then being in compliance based on that point versus having to understand all the different rules and regulations. I guess if you're a UST inspector, you have to know the whole shooting match from top to bottom. But yeah, that it is a complexity that is oftentimes still a frustration. I mean, John, maybe you may have more of a standardized system out there, so most of your sites are kind of similar. But I would think that, do you? I guess I'm assuming that.
No, we have a little bit of everything, a mixture from I've even got some AST sites.
Okay.
And we've got stuff that falls into all the categories, all the years. So it's I get to keep track of it, and as I hire folks, and they get to learn all of the rules rather than just the 2008 and later or the others. So bit of a mix, it's a challenge.
I'm just remembering a couple of years ago, I learned the state of Colorado, I don't know if this is still true or not, they would have two types of inspectors out there. The person that likes their greasy boots out in the field, and the person who likes to be back in the office looking at spreadsheets, right? And so they would take compliance and split it in half. They'd have the field portion and then the record keeping portion, and they were able to actually get a lot more done because they were actually using the inclinations and talents of the individuals doing the work. And so they had figured out a way how the operator would send in all the records, they would be studied back at the office, and the field person would go out and do their part, and they would sync the two together. And supposedly they got a lot more inspections done that way. I'm curious if anyone's on the line here from Colorado, if they in fact still do that. I thought that was a very novel way to kind of divide and conquer.
Yeah, from my side in Colorado, it's the same person. So we have an announced inspection, and they'll request the documents. I send those ahead of time. They can review in the office, and then I believe that same inspector goes to the site and then does the in-person inspection as well.
Okay. Yeah, always a different way to skin a cat, as it were. Penalties, financial penalties, red tags, stuff like that. States have a suite of enforcement tools at their discretion, everything from come on, I'll go to lunch, I'll come back and the spill bucket will be clean, right? To all the way to, red tag and shutdown. What kind of open for the whole panel, the use of more kind of heavy-handed tools like red tags and large financial penalties. EPA, I think you're statutorily bound to have certain fines issued based on certain violations. I mean, any advice or opinion or perspective on the use of those kind of heavier enforcement tools? Do they give you the desired effect of achieving compliance, I guess is the question.
Well, I've only been here a few months and I haven't done an inspection with the EPA yet.
Okay.
But I know there are policies and you have to meet the criteria in order to be red tagged or delivery prohibitions.
Mm.
So if they meet all the criteria, afraid you have to use the policy and just do it.
Okay, so there's a procedure that has to be abided by as a
Yes,
EPA inspector. Okay.
for
Okay.
sure.
So red tags and fines, I mean, do they, I'm curious what you folks think about. Does that help bring the operator back on course, or are they just mad they gotta write a $10,000 check to somebody? What are your thoughts about the heavier side of enforcement?
My perspective is if the violations are willful and egregious and, you know, they definitely know better, you know, there's a place for that. But for, you know, smaller issues and administrative issues, I forgot to do a 30-day walk around, you know, within the 30 days, and it was done on day 37, you know, because someone was on vacation. You know, I don't think a fine or a penalty, you know, is warranted in that case. But you got to have the heavy hand out there to, you know, be able to lay the hammer down when you need it. But I think you know, and NOV is a great start, getting their attention, saying, hey, you know, this is what you did wrong. Let's try and correct it. And then, you know, if that just gets tossed in the trash and ignored, then, you know, then you got to go another route. But that's my 2 cents.
Years ago in Oregon, I started doing operator training when it first became required back in the early 2000s. And they had a matrix, and like they had a high, medium, they went through every single regulation and they assigned a high, medium, low criteria to it. And I thought it was a pretty fair distribution, because to your point, Ed, I mean, you can't treat not all violations are created equal. Like some are administrative procedural, some are willful and negligent. And so I think having a scale of importance, and then maybe you assign a red tag to a, you know, code red high violation, and maybe a NOV letter for something lesser. I don't know how many states actually have that criteria spelled out, but I found that to be, plus I think operators know, okay, you know, here's the bad stuff, here's like the not so bad stuff. And I think if they know what the goalposts are, maybe that will be, I don't know, bit better inspiration to comply. Anybody else, red tags and high fines and stuff like that? Javed, I think you told me the story about someone who got dinged pretty hard for I don't know. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I can share one story. For example, an operator, you know, they're doing their release detection. They have a, you know, reader route that does tank testing, CSLD, and, you know, this is a very good operator. They every first of the month, they'll go to the tank monitor, they'll print out the CSLD report, and then they'll save it. You know, a year later, they'll have 12 months of, you know, tank testing results, right? Inspector comes in, asks for a year's worth of records. The operator gives it to them, but the operator gets fined. And the reason that operator gets fined is because it's not 30 days apart. And that's the problem that I don't like. I think violations, I think penalties, that they need to be there. But at the same time, it's what Ed said, right? It's these small things. You know, I think in this case, the operator was doing tank testing. They have passing results for the last 12 months, but in some months it was 33 days, in some months it was 32 days, but this operator still gets fined, you know, $3,000-$4,000. I think there needs to be some level of leniency there. It's like my supervisor at the state used to always say, you know, you're going down the road and the speed limit is 75, and you decide to go 80, and you're not following the rules. But at the same time, there should be a little bit of leniency there.
That's great. I did want to interrupt. There is tons of comments going on, Chris. I'm sure you're watching this. I think there's more feedback than I'm going to have the time to go over today. But what I think I want to do as we kind of wind down this call near the top of the hour, I do want to I'm going to try to go back and maybe try to answer some of these things, or maybe I'll do the best I can after the call to kind of entertain the comments. There's a lot of really great feedback here, and so, but it's too much going on at the moment for me, I think, to organize it properly. So I'll maybe try to hit a couple of these Q&A things, but I do want to keep this really interesting conversation going. What else? Violations easily fixed. From an operator's perspective, what's the biggest obstacle to achieving compliance? What's the big nut that could be cracked here to help people go from not sure where they're going to have a successful inspection? Is there any one thing that operators ought to really be thinking about in order to have a successful inspection? If there was one big thing.
Well, Javid hit it on the head earlier about training. Boy, you just got to stay on yours. For us, our store teams, and in our industry, turnover is pretty high. And just continual and follow-up training, even at the AB level, to make sure the folks at the store level, they've got a lot of other things coming at them that draw their attention, and that operations and so forth are putting pressure on and importance on. And so we just have to keep coming back and touching on that. And then the other issue for us is we try to streamline and improve is our IT department of working with these online functions to let it through and keep scams from coming through and so forth like that. So we're at the point that, just a little sidetrack, but we use a binder and electronic both as a backup. If one gets destroyed, where chances are we'll have the other one.
I remember being at a site once, I think it was in Portland, Oregon, shooting a video for a Evo 550 tank monitor. And within like 2 hours, I swear, like 5 different inspectors showed up. And it's like, you know, the food safety person. I mean, and the guy just like, you know, one after another. And you finally get to us, it's like, yeah, tanks. I mean, what else? You know, that they're, you know, when you run in convenience stores, I'll use that as kind of the archetypal UST site. Convenience stores are busy, active social hubs where people are coming and going really quickly. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Maybe someone's, you know, stealing tobacco and alcohol and, you know, safety and transient people in front of your. I mean, there's all this stuff going on, and it's always good for me to remember, like, wow, you know, the typical cashier at a gas station or a store manager is managing just traffic all day long, any given day. And so to your point, John, I appreciate that, because there's a lot going on. So between the training and just the awareness of all the multifaceted things it takes to run a business that has fuel tanks, and then your point too about having technology being your friend to be able to help kind of organize that. And anybody else, one biggie thing.
Well, to jump on the training at convenience stores or any place with high turnover is to make sure they know how to address the alarms.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
that will definitely disrupt filling gas. Please call your AB operator or manager, somebody, then your technician, to figure out why it's alarming.
Okay, great. Know your alarms. Great. Anybody else?
I went to a site once that I got there before I opened any lids. I go in and I check the monitor. There's an old Incon, you know, 1000 or something. And I said, well, what's a red light? What is that? Oh, I've been here 1.5 years and that's just always on. I opened up one of the sump lids and it was a fairly deep, it was a 5-foot sump.
Okay.
And it was filled to the top with fuel. Because the manager before him says, oh, that's just always on. And and I mean, it was absolutely completely full. I don't think anything was leaking out. There probably was, but yeah, that was it's like, okay, my line test is done here.
When we show up on a site and we're dealing with somebody who doesn't, who's new or like new behind the counter, and we ask for where their ATG is, and we get the blank look. So we just, okay,
Yeah.
Where's that box on the wall with the lights that goes beep, beep, beep all the time? That's how we find it.
Yeah, I've heard people
I've
say,
used that description.
that loud thing in the back room.
It's always got a flashing light on.
It's always got a flashing light. Just as a little side note here, I'm getting some chat from Colorado. Apparently, they don't split up the division of labor anymore. It sounds like they don't ask for the records to be put in. So maybe I'll be curious to learn why that was not the case. It sounded like a cool idea, but that's now a legacy method of compliance. Javed, for the mom and pops out there, the one thing you, well, no, I guess you maybe answered that already, but any other points to the one thing operators really ought to be sinking their teeth into to get ready for an inspection?
I think if there are any operators on the call, I would highly recommend that they invest the money to get some type of remote monitoring system installed on their tank monitoring system, and those things are great. They send you notification right away if there's an alarm. Typically, the AB operator may be not on site, so he gets notification. And you can even set it up to where your third-party inspection company can get notifications of these types of alarms, any water intrusions. These remote monitoring systems are terrific, and wherever we have installed it, they work like a charm, and highly recommend it.
Right, and we haven't really covered that. So automation of alarm notification and response. Yeah, that. It's a very affordable. Last time I checked, it's a pretty affordable service for a small site, right? I mean, yeah. There was a question, Don. Someone in Seattle is dying to know where you got that pump from. They missed that part of it. The either the battery power pump or the
Home Depot.
Home Depot. Okay. So my Seattle reader, off to Home Depot you go. Okay. I'm always curious about operator training. I mean, operator training, I think, does make things better. And for 10 years now, I've been trying to kind of scientifically prove that. I've not been able to come up with the correct criteria or enough money to develop the correct study to satisfy EPA standards on what a study would be. But maybe go around. We're pushing near the top of the hour here. Has operator training helped at all? Maybe start with Nicole. Has operator training helped with UST compliance?
I would think so. In Hawaii, it was required in 2013. So they've been doing it a long time. And the AMB operator is required to retake the training every 5 years. So they're constantly reminded of all their release detection, how often everything needs to be tested. If there's an alarm, please respond to it, that kind of stuff.
In Hawaii, did you see kind of a causal effect between someone who took the training and passed inspection versus someone who didn't take the training and didn't pass inspection? Or I mean, either anecdotally or otherwise?
Well, I started there in 2017, so it was after everyone already took the AB training. And then the main company was responsible for if the manager with AB training left and the new manager came in, they had to get another training. Yeah.
Don, are you seeing any sort of impact? I mean, I don't know if you see my certificate in the back room or something like that. I mean, any potential causal relationship or not between operator training and successful compliance?
Not so much on the C part of it, but the B, once in a while I'll ask them, I'll talk to the B operator that's on site and ask them what's that alarm mean, and most of the time,
so you'll quiz them.
Yeah. I'll ask them what's that doing now? Why is it doing that? And they're like, oh, well, we have an L2. I think there's water in the sump, and I think it has helped because it helps them know what is out there. Whereas the C is he's just pumping gas or just working in the store. But Oregon is better as far as that. And I think I notice it more in Oregon than Washington.
Interesting. Okay. Javed, what do you think? I mean, you've helped me. I think this will be somewhat of a biased answer. I realize that.
I really think that the operator training is great. It increases the operator's knowledge, it increases their awareness, right? I think these are all great things, but I think it's really important that you choose the right vendor to get your operator training done. I'm a little bit biased with UST training. I think the reason I prefer UST training, because I have taken classes from other vendors, and the reason I prefer UST training is that UST training actually focuses on the on the regulations, so on compliance, but also it focuses on risk management. So in the training, you'll learn about best practices, so it talks a little bit more about what's beyond compliance. So is, spill bucket cleaning, it's important to do every 30 days because compliance says you have to do it. But it's a good idea to do it every time you get a delivery. That's what UST training teaches you. Those things like that, I think it's really important to get the right vendor. And and also I would say that our landscape is changing. Or the operators that we have out in the field, they're a lot more multilingual. So I think we need more of the, the multilingual approach to it. We need to have different languages out there, so that way we can create more comprehension within the field.
That's great. Javed sat on a panel that I did talking about multicultural technical assistance outreach. Maybe we can do that again on a webinar format later this year, Javed. Thank you. And John, is things better because of it, or about the same, or worse, or?
No, definitely better. Anytime you can add training and you can increase somebody's knowledge, it increases their ability to be a part of the team and feel like they've got some responsibility and some ownership in what's going. If you're willing to reach out and provide some training, and then set an expectation for them, that just benefits everybody all the way around. And definitely have seen an improvement and joy of understanding. Once people get the training, they've got an idea of what's happening underground. And the sea operators, they've got an idea of what to do when and why that thing in the back room is ringing and whose phone number do I need to call when that red light's on.
John, you gonna put your cell number on the chat box?
Yeah.
Great. Ed?
I'd echo what John and Javed said. Every time I go to training, I come away with something, and I could have been through it 100 times. With operator training, what I really like to see is more states do some continuing education training, periodically. The once and done, is just, it's not enough. Whether it's, once a year, once every 2 years, once every 3 years. I think 5's a little too long, for a reminder, but maybe every 2 years, some type of refresher just to remind you what's going on. I mean, if they come away with, 5 or 10% of, what they actually went through, that's something.
I do maintain a list of refresher states on our webpage. If you go to our webpage under state regs, there's a tab that I keep track of it's about 15 or 20 states have refresher requirements. But if you ever want to know what those states are, just pop into our webpage. And Brett. Well,
That's
but Brett, preface by saying, people may not know about Montana tank helpers. Maybe start with that.
Well, that's an easy one. Ben helped us develop the Montana Tank Helpers, which is our A and B training online. And it's free and it's pretty thorough. We don't have any kind of retraining requirements in Montana. We have the one and done. That probably will be changing because of, we're seeing an awful lot of operators that took this back in 2008, 2009, and things have changed a lot since then. And we've updated the tank helper as well. And so we'll probably be changing that come forward.
That's great. Well, this has been it's the top of the hour now, folks. And Javed, your dad just jumped in and said periodic training is a very good idea. So thank you, Jalaluddin, for that. That's great. And there's a lot of questions I'm not going to be able to get to. I've got people who have questions about heavy lids and private schools and multicultural outreach and stuff like that. But I think what I want to do is kind of wind things down. I'm going to go through all these Q&As afterwards, and I'll try to answer them all as best I can. Then I'll maybe shoot that all out to the people who attended today's webinar. Wow, maybe we'll do this again sometime. This was super informative. I really appreciate everyone's take and perspective on that. Lots and lots of feedback, lots of comments. I'm just not going to be able to get to them all today. So Yeah, this has been really informative. I think I enjoy hanging out with other people who also have the same mission of wanting to make, you know, UST compliance successful. I do think, in kind of summary, again, echoing National EPA's position for years, this is really a collaborative effort. We've got everything from consultants to service technicians to operators to inspectors. We're all here kind of trying to do the best job we can. And, you know, sometimes enforcement is necessary. Oftentimes, kind of like to Javed's point, really 31 days. I mean, you know, there's lesser points there I think can be negotiated. But hopefully everyone found this useful. We had a lot of attendees today. I will be saving this and putting it up on YouTube, and maybe in the next couple months we'll come back and do it again and see what we can cover. So so Nicole with EPA, and Don with Mascot Equipment, and Ed with OWL, and John with Stinker, and Javed with Your Environmental Services. I don't know if you introduced yourself as that, and Brett with Montana DEQ, and my trusty watch person Chris Rodden keeping an eye on things. I just want to say thanks everyone here today. It was a great conversation. I'll make a copy of it, and UST.com. If you got any questions about what we talked about today, please go to our webpage, and my email is just ben@usttraining.com. Shoot me a note, and I'm probably gonna get a ton of emails for this call, but appreciate everyone's time, and be safe, be smart, be savvy, and have a great day.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.